Mirandasya Gyananjanashalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadadi Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shuvatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarine. Okay, welcome devotees to the morning Srimad Bhagavatam class. I'll be reading from 3rd canto, 8th chapter, verses 16 and 17. So let me share my screen. So to get a context of verses 16 and 17, what I'll do is I'll read a few of the texts leading up to text 16. Maybe I'll read from text number 8. The great sage Shankyayana was the chief amongst the transcendentalists, and when he was describing the glories of the Lord in terms of Srimad Bhagavatam, it so happened that my spiritual master, Parashara, and Brihaspati both heard him. Text 9. The great sage Parashara, as aforementioned, being so advised by the great sage Pulastya, spoke unto me the foremost of the Puranas, or Bhagavatam. I shall also describe this before you, my dear son, in terms of my hearing, because you are always my faithful follower. 10. At that time, when the 3 worlds were submerged in water, Garbhodaka Shai Vishnu was alone, lying on his bedstead. The great snake Ananta, and although he appeared to be in slumber in his own internal potency, free from the action of the external energy, his eyes were not completely closed. Text 11. Just like the strength of fire within fuel wood, the Lord remained within the water of dissolution, submerging all the living entities in their subtle bodies. He lay in the self-invigorated energy called Kal. 12. The Lord lay down for 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas in his internal potency. And by his external energy, he appeared to be sleeping within the water. When the living entities were coming out for further development of their fruitive activities actuated by the energy called Kal Shakti, he saw his transcendental body as bluish. 13. The subtle subject matter of creation on which the Lord's attention was fixed was agitated by the material mode of passion, and thus the subtle form of creation pierced through his abdomen. 14. Piercing through this total sum of the fruitive activity of the living entities took the shape of the bud of a lotus flower generated from the personality of Vishnu, and by his supreme will, it illuminated everything like the sun, and dried up the vast waters of devastation. 15. Into that universal lotus flower, Lord Vishnu personally entered as the Supersoul. And when it was thus impregnated with all the modes of material nature, the personality of Vedic wisdom, whom we call the self-born, was generated. Okay. So 16. Tasyam sachambho ruha karnikayam avasthito lokam apashyamanaha parikraman vyomni vivrittanetrash chatvari lebhe anudisham mukhani. Synonyms or the word-to-word meanings. Tasyam, in that, Saha, Brahma, Cha, and Ambhaha, water, Ruha, Karnikayam, hold of the lotus, Avasthitaha, being situated, Lokam, the world, Apashyamanaha, without being able to see, Parikraman, circumambulating, Vyomni, in space, Vivritta netraha, while moving the eyes, Chatvari, 4, Lebhe, achieved, Anudisham, in terms of direction, Mukhani, heads. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Brahma, born out of the lotus flower, could not see the world, although he was situated in the world. He, therefore, circumambulated all of the space, and while moving his eyes in all directions, he achieved 4 heads in terms of the 4 directions. Okay, so this does not have the purport, so I will go ahead and read verse number 17 also. Tasmad yuganta shvasanava ghurna jalormi chakrad salilad viruddham upashrita kanjam uloka tattvam natmanam adhavidad adidevaha. Synonyms or the word-to-word meanings. Tasmat, from there, yuga anta, at the end of the millennium. Shvasana, the air of devastation. Avaghurna, because of movement. Jala, water. Urmi, chakrat, out of the circles of waves. Salilat, from the water. Virudham, situated on them. Upashritaha, having the shelter of. Kanjam, lotus flower. U, in astonishment. Loka tattvam, the mystery of creation. Na, not. Atmanam, himself. Adha, perfectly. Avidat, could understand. Adi Devaha, the first demigod. Translation. Lord Brahma, situated in that lotus, could not perfectly understand the creation, the lotus, or himself. At the end of the millennium, the air of devastation began to move the water and the lotus in great circular waves. Purport. Lord Brahma was perplexed about his creation, the lotus, and the world. Even though he tried to understand them for 1 millennium, which is beyond calculation in the solar years of human beings. No one, therefore, can know the mystery of the creation and cosmic manifestation simply by mental speculation. The human being is so limited in his capacity that without the help of the Supreme, he can hardly understand the mystery of the will of the Lord in terms of creation, continuance, and destruction. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter under his lotus feet. Okay, so here, I'm sorry, I was completely not prepared. So the topic is about creation, and Lord Brahma, text 16 and 17, it said that Lord Brahma was born out of the lotus flower, and he could not see the world, although he was situated in the whole. And he therefore circumambulated all of the space, and while moving his eyes in all directions, he achieved 4 heads in terms of the 4 directions. And 17, Lord Brahma, situated in that lotus, could not perfectly understand the creation, the lotus, or himself. At the end of the millennium, the air of devastation began to move the water and the lotus in great circular waves. Okay, so the context here is that the creation is being described by Maitreya Muni, and Lord Brahma is the first living entity within this universe. When the universe was created, there was nothing, there were no planets, it was all dark space, and Lord Brahma was created, and he came out of the he was on the top of a lotus flower, the flower which sprouted from the navel of Lord Garbhodakasai Vishnu at the bottom of the universe. And when he came out, it's mentioned that he is trying to look around, but there was nothing, and he was confused. And in 17, Prabhupada writes that Lord Brahma was perplexed, more than confused, perplexed is the right word, about his creation, the lotus and the world, even though he tried to understand them for 1 millennium, which is beyond calculation of human beings. And then Prabhupada writes that no one therefore can know the mystery of the creation and cosmic manifestation simply by mental speculation. So we see here that the creation itself is very difficult to understand, and one might ask, like, why this creation? What is the need to understand the creation? Actually, there is no need, but there are different types of people, and by understanding the details, it helps our Krishna consciousness. So if we see Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita is divided into 3 parts. The first 6 chapters are about yoga. Yoga means how to connect with the Lord, and different types of yoga are mentioned. Right from the beginning, like even Karma Kanda is mentioned in chapter 3. Karma Kanda is actually not yoga, but in terms of the ladder, it is a valid step where the living entity or persons wanting to enjoy fruitive activities look at the Vedic scriptures and, according to the Vedic injunctions, try to make progress materially. And then they start, by going through that process, then they start going through the Karma Yoga. First of all, they start with Sakam Karma Yoga, then they move to the Nishkam Karma Yoga. And then the Buddhi Yoga starts. Buddhi Yoga basically means working with knowledge. So, and that's same as also Bhakti Yoga, because Bhakti meaning understanding, involving devotion, but devotion after understanding. So when we have the knowledge, when we get the knowledge, then we can understand and act in Buddhi Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. Chapter 6 also Krishna talks in chapter 6 about the Ashtanga Yoga process, which was later elaborated by Patanjali Muni. And he divided into these 8 categories, and systematically and categorically he presented it. But at the end of 6th chapter, we see that again, Bhakti Yoga is highlighted. Or Krishna says that Bhakti Yoga is the best among all the yoga systems. So these are the first 6 chapters. Then the next 6 chapters are devotional service. So one may think, okay, so devotional service has been established in 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 chapter. But after that, the last 6 chapters talk about the knowledge again. So what is the need for knowledge? We have heard about the sandwich theory, that bhakti is sandwiched between yoga and jnana and protected by these two. So what does protected mean? The bhakti yoga is there, and Krishna mentions, like he talks about his opulences in chapters 8 and 10. Chapter 10 specifically, the title is Opulences of the Absolute, if I'm not wrong. Yes. So he talks about himself because to know Krishna, to love Krishna, we have to know him. And therefore he talks about himself. And then he establishes Bhakti Yoga as the highest. And then again from chapter 13, very detailed and complicated chapters about knowledge. He talks about the Prakriti in chapter 14, consciousness, talks about the inverted banyan tree in chapter 15 and how it relates to the universe or the material world, which is a reflection of the spiritual world. And those are very quite complex theories that he is mentioning. So one may ask, what is the need? But if we read carefully these chapters, for example, chapter 14, material nature, where he's talking about the Prakriti, the last verse he says is that, or actually last 2 verses I'd like to read, chapter 14, 26. Mam cha yo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sa gunan samatiya yaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, unfailing in all circumstances, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. And text 27, he says that, Brahmano hi pratistaham amritasya vyayasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukhasya kantikasya cha. And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. So here, Krishna, we see that the chapter is about material nature, so he's relating it to the material nature, but he takes it into Bhakti Yoga. He says that one who engages in the Bhakti Yoga or in the full devotional service, they can transcend the modes of material nature. So he not only explains the material nature, what are the different characteristics of material nature, the 3 gunas and how they act, but he also gives, he also tells that these modes are binding, but he doesn't just live there. He also gives the solution how to come out of these modes, which is in these last 2 verses. So what I'm trying to get at is that in Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna talks about, and in 15th chapter also, there are the yoga of the Supreme Person, and the Bhakti Yoga is clearly, he takes the discussion or the Bhagavad Gita in the Bhakti. So once in the middle chapters, the Bhakti Yoga has been established. Now Krishna takes and gives the knowledge and how that knowledge can further strengthen the bhakti. Because in the middle 6th chapter, the devotee reading the Bhagavad Gita may have theoretically understood the bhakti part, but how to rivet that bhakti. Rivet meaning like in terms of welding, when two iron rods are joined together, there's welding done, and that's called riveting, meaning like they are joined so strong that they are inseparable, they become one. So how to do that? That is through the knowledge. And when the knowledge is there, it strengthens the bhakti beyond separation, beyond theory. And that theory is when that theory becomes when we understand the theory and when we practically implement that theory, then it becomes self-realization. So that's what I wanted to share. I was not able to prepare for this, but that's what came to my mind when I was reading these two verses, that Lord Brahma is creating, and the lotus flower and the stem, and these are beyond, we are extremely, extremely tiny, and it's beyond our capacity to understand these things. But by trying to understand theoretically, and by understanding what the scriptures are mentioning, we are able to rivet, or we are able to strengthen our bhakti with Krishna. That's my understanding, and that's what I wanted to share. So I'll stop here and see if there is any discussion. Okay, if not, we will stop here. And thank you everyone for joining. Good morning. Vancha kalpatarubhescha kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Have a good rest of your day.